Hello everyone. When it comes to binoculars, there is a massive range of price and quality. While there obviously can be quality variations at a given price level, higher quality typically costs more due to advanced coatings, specialty glass types, advanced optical designs requiring many lens elements, increased levels of precision and polish of glass, and more. But optics are also like many other things in that there is a level of diminishing returns as you go higher in cost. At the very lowest end, quality increases significantly with only small to moderate price increases. But above a certain point, larger increases in cost bring smaller increases in quality. I've compared some 8x30 loophole Yosemite binoculars to some more expensive binoculars and found them to stack up pretty well. But in that video, I compared them to 8x42 and 10x42 binoculars. So for this video, I wanted to push that kind of comparison even further while also doing a more apples-to-apples comparison. And that is why I picked these two binoculars to be the main focus of this video. First is the Kowa YF, which are essentially the same as the Yosemites. They're made in the same factory and seem to have identical build quality and optics. But I chose the Kowa over the Yosemites for this video because the Yosemites seem to be discontinued while the Kowa YF are currently available. I know what you're thinking. Are you crazy? Those other binoculars are Swarovski CL Companions, which is hardly an apples-to-apples comparison. And you have a point. But first of all, I can't actually read your thoughts. And second, if you are just talking about the specs, these two pairs of binoculars are surprisingly similar. And since I don't know if you're actually talking about the specs and I can't hear you anyway, I'll talk about the specs. Both of these are 8x magnification with 30mm objectives. Both weigh about a pound. Both claim 16mm eye relief and virtually the same field of view. They also have a similar close focus distance, and while the Kowa use poro prisms, they aren't significantly larger. So I thought these two would make for a good comparison to see just how far up the diminishing return scale we've already gotten by $100, which is what these Kowas cost. But before we dive deep into that particular comparison, let's look at the lower end of the scale. These generic binoculars are only $10, but they are also barely usable due to a dim, hazy, blurry view with a dark blue color tint, bad distortion, and tiny eye relief. Spend just $30 on one of these pairs of binoculars and the color, brightness, clarity, eye relief, they're all a significant step up. These binoculars aren't great, but they are much better than this $10 pair. When you step up from there to something like these Kowas, it's a whole new world of wide, comfortable views with a bright, clear image and great color. The difference in quality is significant, and I feel it's absolutely worth the extra cost for the extra performance you get with these, even if you don't demand the best, but simply want a better view and are willing to pay a bit more for it. But what if you jump way up in price again from there? For simplicity, I'll be referring to the Swarovski CL Companions as just CLs and the Kowa YFs as YFs. Unsurprisingly, the CLs have better build quality than the YFs. They have a much nicer focus knob with no play at all and even consistent resistance. The focus knob on the YFs have a little bit of play, and mostly they just have very uneven resistance. The CLs also have probably the best caps of any binoculars I've ever used. They snap in place smoothly and securely while still being very easy to remove. Unfortunately, the objective caps on the YFs are not tethered, and the ocular cover is very loose-fitting and falls off way too easily. Both are fairly lightweight and ergonomic, and despite the uneven focus knob resistance, the YFs aren't terribly difficult to focus. That could partly be due to the fact that the focus knob feels almost identical to my Yosemites that I've had for years, so I'm used to the feel of it. It is a bit annoying, but it doesn't prevent me from achieving good focus. Both of these binoculars have fairly easy, comfortable eye placement. If I had to give the edge to one of them, it would be the CLs, but I find both very comfortable to look through. As far as optical quality, the CLs have a flatter field and appear to have better corrected optical aberrations in general. This gives the view a much more even and consistent look across the whole field of view. This also means that more of the field is in focus at once, so you get less sharpness and contrast fall off as you move away from the center. This may also be why, even though technically the field of view is nearly identical between these two, the CLs felt like the field of view was slightly more immersive. On the other hand, the CLs have slightly higher chromatic aberration, particularly away from the center. It's not terrible and it wasn't always visible, but I did notice it occasionally. Both of these are very sharp with excellent clarity and contrast. As mentioned, the CLs have more uniform sharpness across the field than the YFs. If you're looking at a wide scene where you're taking in the whole field of view, the CLs do give an overall sharper impression. But if you are primarily concentrating on the middle part of the view, say, the middle 50% or so, the YFs are every bit as sharp as the CLs. In fact, when focused at distances under 20 feet or so, when you can really scrutinize the very finest details of an object, the YF seem to slightly edge past the CLs in max center sharpness. The difference is small, and the CLs are definitely no slouch when it comes to sharpness, but there were times when the very finest details were slightly more crisp in the YFs. The center sharpness and clarity of the YFs, simply fantastic. However, the wide set objectives on the YFs mean you start to lose your single circular view when focusing within 20 feet or so. The objectives are much closer together on the CL Companions, simply by nature of them using roof prisms, and this makes them overall more comfortable to look through at relatively close distances because you don't feel like your view is starting to, kind of separate and you can go a bit cross-eyed. The CLs also focus a tiny bit closer, but to be fair, neither of these binoculars focus especially close and the distance isn't very much. The closest focus distance on the YFs was about 9 feet, with the CLs hitting focus at just over 8 feet. Any difference in brightness or transmission between these two is very slight. My impression was that the YFs might have a slightly stronger transmission of the very darkest reds, while the CLs might be slightly brighter overall. I didn't do any scientific measurements or anything, and any perceived difference was incredibly small. Both are very bright with natural, pleasing color. So, getting back to diminishing returns, the YFs are dramatically better than $30 binoculars and obviously $10 binoculars. So switching from either of these to the YFs is a dramatic improvement. But what about when I switch from the Kowa YF to the Swarovski CL Companions? The eye relief is a tiny bit more comfortable, the image is better corrected towards the edges, making the view more immersive overall, and the focus knob is much nicer. They are a pleasure to use all around, but it isn't a night and day leap in image quality when you switch to the CLs from the YFs. And there's no frustratingly significant drop in image quality when switching back to the YFs. That doesn't mean the CLs won't be worth the money to some. All else being equal, I'd choose the CLs, no doubt. But all else isn't equal. If you just bought a pair of the CL Companions and were fighting back regret-induced vomiting while frantically hitting the dislike button when I told you that a pair of $100 binoculars are actually sharper in the center, don't worry, you probably aren't alone. Besides, the CLs are better overall, even if the optical quality difference isn't nearly as dramatic as the difference between the YFs and a $30 pair of binoculars. There's also something to be said for the excellent build quality and feel of the Swarovskis. Still, I think the Kowa YF 8x30s are excellent all-around binoculars for the money. They aren't the best at everything, to be sure. Even in this general price range, there may be something with a better eye relief or something with a wider field of view, higher power, more compact, etc. Optics are always a compromise. You can't have everything at any price, and the price goes up quickly the closer you get. The CL Companions do come a bit closer to having everything than the YFs do, but if you can't afford or simply don't want to spend that much for binoculars, I think the YFs strike a good balance for general use, and I think they're a great value. So you can rest easy knowing that your $100 binoculars get you a long way up the ladder of diminishing returns. And if all you have are $10 binoculars, well, you can rest easy knowing that while your binoculars are nearly unusable, you don't have to spend more than $30 to get something significantly better. So hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. As always, thanks for watching. Take care.